tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. We're running without Ron. Maybe he'll join us. Maybe he won't. He'll either pop up or he won't. We'll see. Obviously, he's on the road. I'm excited for him to get back so we can get back to like a normal show flow. I swear I need like a laminated checklist of all the things you have to do to get the show live. And even still, we'll probably have some hiccups because we're not AI. It's just that simple. We're as authentic as it gets, as raw as it gets. So yesterday, or the last couple of days, Donald Trump has been hanging out over in Scotland at his great course Turnberry. And this is a little video clip of Donald Trump walking with Keir Starmer. And he's in Scotland and he's walking to Donald Trump's house. Okay, watch this moment here. Ooh, that's a little one on that. Okay, so he's walking to Donald Trump's house. Look at the magnificence of this house. This house is amazing. And if you've ever watched, I think it's like something Downing Street where the prime minister lives. It's nothing like this. This is a beautiful, beautiful home. I attached to the Turnberry. Oh, hello. What happened? I had like an internet glitch or something like that. Yes, John Atakis, it's a good morning, except the internet glitched. Okay, so this is what it says here. Trump took UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer into his castle-like 16-room house in Scotland for trade talks over dinner, bringing the head of state to a nicer property than his own official residence in his own backyard. It's such a flex. I think that's so funny. Oh, I remember one time Donald Trump was like, I don't know why these people think they're elite. I've got a nicer house than they do. They say they're not elite. I'm elite. It's so funny. Oh, okay. So yesterday I listened to a podcast on Tucker Carlson, and it was with Richard Werner, I believe his name is. Let me just double check so I get the name right. His name was, yes, Richard Werner. And it's titled Exposes the Evils of the Fed and the Link Between Banking, War, and the CIA. Okay. So in this episode, I was blown away. I'm going to make it like required listening for students that I have in 1776 Live because he talks about banking. He's talking about central banking. He's talking about when the Japanese market collapsed, why that happened. He went through and found the links. And there was one key thing that he talked about in there that he proved beyond a shadow of a doubt. He's got all the documentation to show it. And it's one simple thing. They're not loaning you any money. You create the money that you loan to the bank that it loans back to you for the mortgage. You're the original source of the money. There's no gold or silver. It's not other people's savings. It's cooking the books. It's that simple. It's cooking the books. Every time you apply for a credit card loan, you expand the US dollar. That is where the main source of inflation is. He says all economists just look at banks as intermediaries. They don't consider the fact that they literally are making money. This is why no economist can ever figure out what the heck is going on with the economy, which we're going to see here in just a second. So I am making that required listening. I teach that. I've been talking about that for literally years now. And to hear it come out from some guy who writes papers that are quoted by economists around the world, that's some bigwig guy that's done all this research. He's the one who created the term quantitative easing as a way to fix the breaking economies, not the way it's been applied, all this stuff. Ron, I was just telling these guys, welcome. I was just telling these guys about Tucker Carlson. I listened to a podcast yesterday with Robert Werner, where he talked about the Fed and how money is created and stuff. And he said point blank to Tucker Carlson, The banks don't lend you money. They create it when you borrow from them. You form a promissory note. That is the money that creates the money they loan back to you. There's no gold or silver. There's no backing. There's no deposits. There's no available funds. It's expansion. You're expanding the economy. So we say this, and I can explain it to people and I can show it to people. And there's always this incredulous belief like, it's just, that's not really what's happening. No, he's like, this is what's happening. And they know it's a fraud and they know they're not supposed to do that. And they've been doing it now for so long that you can't stop it.
It's fractional reserve banking.
It's not fractional reserve banking.
It is because they hold a fraction of what they know.
Fractional reserve banking is their funny money that they get to play with. When you get a mortgage, they're loaning you nothing. You're making the deposit. They cannot loan one client. They call it client money or whatever. Client money. They cannot loan it. Like if you make a deposit, even if you hypothecate it and do fractional reserve, you can invest it at the bank, but you can't loan it to another person. So the money is coming from you. And he says, this is the fraud. And he says, so for example, since money doesn't originate from anywhere, no money actually transfers international borders. For example, say Zimbabwe needs a loan and they go to Barclays in England and get a loan. They originated the loan. You never even had to go to Barclays and have interest and have your property tied to some foreign bank via contract. He's like, just start a bank and create the money. That's all they're doing. They're just creating the money to give to you that you're giving to them in a promissory note. You're pledging the debt before they have the money to lend on you. Anyways, and he goes, and how that ties into the CA. This is how you take over countries with debt. You pretend like you're lending them something when really you're not. You're just lending them fake money that you created on their promise to pay. And so the money, he's like, when Zimbabwe goes to get a loan for a bridge, they paid for it. Like up front. They paid for it up front. They could have just started a bank and paid for it and done the work and gave the people their currency. He's like, anyways, it is a fascinating thing. It must end. Like that's the thing with all of these fake systems. They have an expiration date. When it is, I don't know. How much pain it causes us, I have no idea. But yesterday there was a lawsuit that they partially prevailed. So this was from what this is there's two meetings that are happening today at the Fed. There's the Board of Chairmen and the Federal Open Market Committee are meeting. Okay. So this gentleman, I don't even know his name. This gentleman went into court to an Obama judge to sue the Fed to open up that meeting for transparency. Okay. Because in the whole history of the Fed, these meetings have never been transparent in violation of the law. So this is what he had to say about that lawsuit. So let me do the whole screen share thing so I don't set it up and then play and it's silent. Okay, here you go.
There's no question that the Federal Reserve is the most important economic decision-making body in the country. It also happens to be the least accountable. In today's case, today's emergency motion is an opportunity to take the first step and bring real, long overdue accountability to an institution that, to tell you the truth, most Americans know nothing about. Gallup said last year that only 4% of Americans have a great deal of confidence in Jerome Powell to do the right thing. And I got to tell you the truth, this is not just about Jerome Powell. It's about Fed chairs that have come before him and Fed chairs that will come after him if transparency is not enforced at the Federal Reserve. And this is not the transparency that comes at the recommendation of Azoria. It is the transparency that comes at the mandate of federal law. Congress got together after Watergate and said enough is enough. The government needs to operate in public view, not just for the government's sake, but for our sake. We have a right. We've talked about this. You have a right to criticize our government when it's making a mistake. When they shut down our churches during the pandemic, when they tried to infuse ideology into our schools, we had a right to criticize them, but then we at least knew what they were doing to be able to criticize them. We have no idea what goes into the Fed's decision-making process. We have no idea why exactly, despite the fact that inflation is a 4-year low, it's annualized 1.8% under President Trump's first 6 months in office. We have no idea why Jerome Powell and his Fed board are keeping interest rates near a 20-year high. Now, we checked Not a single member of the FOMC has a mortgage. Not a single one of them. 100 million Americans have a mortgage. They are paying the price for this awful decision making. And all we want to do in this case is to bring a little bit of sunlight to the Federal Reserve's deliberations, because sunlight, of course, is the best disinfectant.
So
There's no
basically what
question
the
that
court said yesterday was this private board is not subject to sunlight transparency laws, but the board of directors of the Federal Reserve is. And according to the law, and this is where they're going to have to wait and let the lawsuit play out, if the Fed Reserve Board is present, it's a public meeting. You can't have a public people that are subject to transparency sunlight laws meeting in private and be like, oh, it's private because these people are no, the public is public. We get to see. So all this operating in obscurity, the wheels are in motion now, setting all this loose, right? To come in and say, yeah, how are you guys making these decisions? Everything you put on paper in years past saying when you go low and when you go high on interest rates, you're violating right now. And we have your assistance in undercover video. Thank you, James O'Keefe and O'Keefe Media Group, saying, oh, no, they're only keeping interest rates high because Jay Powell hates Donald Trump. So you're paying 7% on your mortgage. You know, there's less buyers in the market because of affordability. Your credit card interest rates are high. Your car interest rates are high. So you're paying through the nose because, oh, you know, Jay Powell doesn't like Donald Trump. There's no factors, economic factors saying we should have high interest rates. In fact, Trump goes through and he points this out when he met with Keir Starmer, mentioning these interest rates and the disparity between Europe and England specifically and the U.S.
Oh, I think he has to. You had 11 cuts, you know. In Europe, they had
11 cuts, and we're doing better. 11 cuts, and on every possible metric you can think, America is outperforming Europe.
Cuts. In other places, they had 10 or 11 cuts, and we had none. But I'm not going to say anything bad. You know, we're doing so well, even without the rate cut. With the rate cut, it would be better. It affects our housing a little bit. Look,
a little bit.
We should be 3 points lower. Each point is 300.
I absolutely watching Keir Starmer here just look like, I don't know, man. I feel like a kid. He reminds me of like, what's that cartoon where there's a cartoon? Anyways, he just reminds me almost like a cartoon kid character.
$160 billion. Can you imagine that? That's big numbers. Each point, 1 point of cut, is the equivalent of $360 billion in savings. That's big stuff, you know. Those are big numbers in the U.S. Everything's big. He should cut. A smart person would cut. You know, he leaves very soon, so it's like one of those things. But I'll miss him greatly. I'll miss him.
I'll miss him greatly.
Yes.
There will be no more whipping boy. Oh, man. Anyways, I just thought that was pretty interesting. There is, so I encourage people to go listen to that Tucker Carlson podcast, even if you have to miss an episode of this episode, you know, this show. It was worth it. If you're into banking and finance and kind of understanding how that works, I think it's really important. Yesterday, I mentioned how the Amish are kind of one of the reasons why Americans stay free. And I'm going to get to one of those other reasons. I'm going to show you what the Amish have put up with over the years in order to maintain their liberty. They're willing to pay the price for that liberty. So Trump announced, we mentioned this yesterday, but Trump announces the EU trade deal with 15% tariffs. So apparently the Financial Times, who's, you know, like the paper of the globalist, is like, this is a really one-sided deal for America. They win. Which is unlike NAFTA, which was not a one-sided deal, right? And I started thinking about this. I started thinking about my years in college, which went to a conservative school, right? I'm sure most of the people that were my peers in that group are probably now considered conservatives or something like that. But at the time, we were all like, I shouldn't say all, but generally we're questioning the war. It was your typical university environment, just slightly more religious, okay? And I remember thinking and having this impression that like other countries had it better or had figured it out better. Like, you know, you go to the Scandinavian, Norway and Finland and Sweden. Oh, look, they're so much more socially cohesive. Yeah, well, they have like 0 minorities back then, right? Now they're having some serious problems. Sweden was the rape capital of the world for a little bit, you know? And I would kind of think about you'd kind of get this impression that we as Americans inherited this great legacy and these other countries are kind of continuing on with that legacy. I've since been broken of that myth. American exceptionalism is real. We are a different breed of animal. We think differently. On large, we have way more entrepreneurs and, creativity and liberty and all kinds of stuff. Our previous presidents, I think, have had that other countries are better mentality. We don't really have anything going on that special here. Let's see what China's got going. Oh, 5,000 year history. That's amazing. Oh yeah. Oh, totalitarianism from start to finish. Oh, that's awesome. What a great way to live. You know what I mean? Or you go look at Europe and all these forced economies, these social economies. Oh yeah, no, everybody's getting paid. Oh, don't look at the debt. It's like this attitude of wanting
60% taxes.
It's the old wealth calling to the new wealth. There's always that old wealth doesn't accept the nouveau riche, and the nouveau riche are just dying to be accepted. That's kind of what I have seen. And I've seen that with our political leaders and things like NAFTA, where you can have the old wealth going like, no, you want globalism. You want kind of open borders. You want low regulation because it's good for them. They've got the old vested interest, the old copper mines in South America. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't want to be,
for me, it felt like some of our politicians wanted to join the ranks of those people, and the only way they could do it was to accumulate enough wealth that was just not possible to accumulate individually, and so they just had to steal it.
And of course, the buy-in, right? The idea that we're playing your guys' game. Yes, because remember, don't forget, we're only like England's not even separated from monarchy. Like they're still under a monarchy. I'm just saying, if Parliament had a whole bunch of huge scandals, guess who steps in? The king. You know what I mean? Like they're still under a monarchy. A lot of countries around the world are not that far removed from monarchy and aristocracy. And these people viewed the peasant folk like us as subjects. We were inferiors, not as smart, not as capable, right? Should be directed and told what to do and not to do. Like this was standard operating procedure. We're not removed from that more than a generation or two at most, right? So this mentality continues. I mean, it's something to really consider. And so having our elites constantly trying to capitulate and become part of it, it's led to bad deals and all that kind of stuff. Well, Trump comes in and he's like, no, America's great. We're the best. We've got the best everything. We've got the biggest this, the best that. We're the best everything. He believes in American exceptionalism. And so when he goes out and negotiates, he's like, well, I have to negotiate. We're the best. You guys want to do business with us. Whereas the rich and wealthy of these other countries are like, well, we need the United States to do business with us, but you really need us for leadership. And you need us for, experience or whatever. I mean, sure, you've got all these natural resources. Like they flip the table on us, whereas Trump's like, nah, we've got the most market, we've got the most buyers, we've got the best system. You guys need to pay a price to come do business with us.
We've got the most fake money.
And you hear JD Vance back when they had the Signalgate scandal where, there was Intel got leased that we were going to attack the Houthis after we attacked them, of course. But nonetheless, you hear, Trump Vance saying things like the Europeans want us to do this. He's talking pretty derogatorily, like the Europeans, like ignore them. They're a bunch of idiots. They don't pay their bills and they don't send their kids to go fight. You know what I mean? He's like, you can hear a Marine being like, screw the Europeans. I've been in the battlefield with them. You know what I mean? Like, they ain't worth it. Like, it's a completely different attitude. So the Trump announces EU trade deal with the 15% tariffs. Everything I've read it here is showing that this is a pretty one-sided deal. Like, it's a huge win for America, and it's the biggest trade deal ever. And I think that's why it's like a couple headlines here and there. The market's reacting pretty well, but they don't really want to write it. This is like, how did the European Union let this happen? How did they let this happen?
Should be a huge story.
Huh?
Should be a very huge story.
And the thing is, it's because our market is the market that you have to sell into. You have to sell into this market. They don't have a market. They protect our goods from going there, but the reality is a big part of their economy is exports to us. The money comes from us. We can tell JD does not like the Europeans. Yes. President Donald Trump announced Sunday the U.S. reached a trade deal with the European Union. Some products, including aircrafts and their components, some chemicals and pharmaceuticals, will not be subject to tariffs. Basically, those are the things we really want and need. The 15% and don't want to have a tariff in the cost basis at all. Because remember, all costs are a tax. Everything. If you go to the farmer and he picks the tomato and hands it to you, and he goes, the tomato's $1, but it's $1 for me to hand it to you. That $1 to hand it to you is a tax on the good. It's value add. Like if you're going to define tariffs as a tax, you have to define every single value added cost basis thing, and you can call it all a tax. All a tax, right? Everything that you pay beyond the raw value of the fruit, if you were to pick it off the tree, is a tax. So there are some things that we don't want to have taxes added. Apparently some chemicals and things like that. I'm sure those are like critical components for things we make to sell back to them. Trump said the 27-member bloc also agreed to purchase $750 billion worth of U.S. energy and invest an additional $600 billion worth of investments into the U.S. above their current investment levels. It's a very powerful deal, a very big deal. It's the biggest of all deals, Trump said. When he talks, I always think of Scott Adams with when he talks, you've got eagles and flags flying out of his a-hole. It's a very powerful deal, very big deal, the biggest deal of all. It's a good deal. It's a huge deal with tough negotiations. And that was said not by Trump, but von der Leyen said at the meeting. Okay, so European leaders react. Ireland prime member said brings clarity and predictability to the trading relationship between the EU and the US. It does mean that there will now be higher tariffs than there have been. This will have an impact on trade between the EU and the US, making it more expensive and more challenging. More expensive for who? Notice how they're not saying more expensive for the American consumer. They're talking about their companies are going to have to pay the tax because if they want to compete with domestic products, they're still going to have to land at a price point that's comparable. Duh. Right? It's harder for them, not for you as the buyer. What it just means is you're probably going to have more domestic options available sooner. German Chancellor said, before we jump to that, he said it creates a new era of stability. German Chancellor said, with the agreement, the EU-US negotiations on tariffs, a trade conflict would have to hit export-oriented German economy hard has been avoided. So they're like, oh, we avoided a hard hit. This is especially true for the auto industry, for which the current tariffs were 27.5, were almost half to 15%. Especially here, the quick tariff reduction is of great significance. I'm sure what happened is Volkswagen figured out that they couldn't price their cars competitively at 27% tariff. That was probably the magic number where you're now the most expensive car. You know what I mean? And so dropping it down to 15% puts it in the realm of compatibility. Netherlands Prime Minister said no tariffs would have been better, but praised the European Commissioner for securing the best agreement possible. Now, keep in mind, this is coming from someone who's had tariffs. The entire EU has had tariffs. This has been the problem. They're one way. So it would have been better if we got no tariffs to the US, but all right, they figured out our game. Literally, Trump's like, yeah, you guys do tariffs. Why don't we? Oh, you guys are Americans. You're dumb. Nah, not this guy. He said the deal underway, this is from the European Commissioner from Netherlands still, brings clarity for our business and brings more market stability. So it just goes on and on. Lots of good praise for the deal. Really good. Happy to see it. And this is Gary Baker, editor at large, talking about how Trump has completely flipped everybody's understanding of tariffs. Because remember, back in April when Trump was announcing the tariffs, freak out, we're going to have a huge recession. Even Bill Maher is eating crow right now going, I thought we'd be in a recession or depression right now, and the stock market's doing great, and every indicator's doing great. Jerome Powell, do you mind lowering interest rates? So here is Jerry Baker.
In danger of proving the truth of an old joke about economists, which is that an economist is someone who sees something work in practice and explains why it will never work in theory. Trump is challenging the theory that tariffs are terrible for the global economy. I'm with David. I was a skeptic. I still am. I still think we'd be better off without tariffs. But you have to say, so far, the tariffs that we have, which are significant, exactly as you say, Martha, they're not as significant as the ones that he initially proposed in April, but they are really big. The total average tariff now in the US is about 17-18% as a result of this EU deal. It was 2 to 3% before Donald Trump became president. A lot of people said that would be a disaster. It hasn't been a disaster. Bill Maher's right. The economy is growing. Inflation is stable. The stock market is booming. So I think Donald Trump is demonstrating not only that he is a very, very good deal maker, and this deal with the European Union is an extraordinary one in those terms. It's an incredibly one-sided deal. It's like, you and me doing a deal and you end up owning all of my personal property, Martha. It's an astonishingly one-sided deal.
I like hearing that. It's nice to hear it's a one-sided deal our direction for once.
But not that, but it's also the kind of deal with the tariffs that's in place that are high enough that they will produce more revenue for the US, probably produce some more investment in the US, but low enough that they don't do so much damage to the economy that people thought. It is a remarkable success.
The panicans, right? The panicans. Oh my gosh, Trump's going to kill everything. He's going to drive us to a recession. It's crazy. It's crazy. And here's the thing. There's a direct line between the president's desk and your dinner table. I've said this many, many times. This has been a theme. It's one of the reasons when I explain to people why I started the podcast. It's because I've spent my whole adult life since college. Once I came into understanding of kind of the general way of how politics and power and regulation, how it all works. And I was like, oh, there's a direct line from the president's desk to your dinner table. That is no more clear than this example right here. This was a Fox, an NBC 13 news story about tomatoes.
Smith Tomato Farm has been a fixture here on top of Chandler Mountain in St. Clair County for about 60 years. Chad Smith says he's seen a lot of changes over the years and not in a positive direction.
Less than 20 years ago, there was over 10 farms here on this mountain. Now there's barely 5, probably going to be 4 within a couple years. And as another 20 years goes by, there's going to be less and less.
Blake Thaxton with the Alabama Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association says the U.S. agreement with Mexico, first set in the late 90s, was meant to protect U.S. farmers, but it wasn't working.
There's been loopholes that the Mexican tomato producers have taken advantage of and continue to price dump or lower the prices below the cost of production.
That is NAFTA.
Here in the United States and in Alabama.
If they send the tomatoes over and it's supposed to be a set price and they need to move tomatoes, well, they may just give a load of bell pepper for free for them to take the tomatoes. So it's never really worked.
Now, without that agreement, the U.S. has a 17% tariff on tomatoes from Mexico.
So a lot of these tomatoes will actually be going out today.
Smith says he's already seeing a more level playing field.
It's only been 2 days now, and we've actually have a lot more calls of people having interest in doing business. And the price hasn't even changed.
Food security is national security, and we need to be able to produce our own food here in the United States.
So what he's saying is immediately, as soon as the tariff hit, within 2 days, their business was going up. They were getting calls, right? And they haven't changed their price or anything, but just being able to reduce the number of tomatoes that come in or setting the price of those tomatoes at least comparable with theirs. Restaurants that order millions and millions of tomatoes, right? Because when you go to McDonald's or you go to Wendy's, those tomatoes did not come from an American farm. They came from a Mexican farm, right? But they're the big buyer of tomatoes. Imagine if this company got the McDonald's contract. That's a big difference. So all of a sudden, when those Mexican tomatoes are 17 cents more a bushel than your tomatoes and you're buying millions of bushels, you're like, maybe we'll give the local guys a shot. Because at the end of the day, business and the buyer, it's just all about price. Of course, they're going to go to the cheap goods. Especially if you can artificially make them cheaper than cheap, aka slave labor in China or child labor in Bangladesh. You know what I mean? If you can make it cheap, business is going to be drawn to that. It's amoral. That's the unfortunate part. Until humanity wakes up and sees it for what it is, like we do, because it affects us, it's all amoral. Lower price is good. Well, lower prices equal jobby. Oh, hold on a sec. The Henry Ford idea. You have to pay your employees enough to actually buy the thing they're making. They're your primary market drivers.
Yeah.
I love it. I love seeing the little changes like that. It's very encouraging because there is a lot of doom and gloom out there. There's a lot of things to be very discouraged about. This is Laura Ingram talking with, this is one of those financial guys that spends all of his day in the gym because he's rich now. Right. So I looked at this. I'm like, why is a fitness guy talking about finance? Turns out he's like CEO of something. Oh, I'll go ahead and share it with you.
Now for each. There's a report that tariffs have netted $20 billion now for each of the last 2 months. Thoughts on tonight and where we are?
Well, Laura, you summed up what most economists with big degrees can't figure out. It's simple. Donald Trump has the Midas touch. He promised to make America first. He promised that we would be winning so much that we would get sick of it. I don't know if we're there yet. But look, the numbers don't lie. I mean, the Dems said the tariffs would kill us. The comedian said it. The talking head said it. The economists and the bankers, they were all wrong. But the numbers are the numbers. We have budget surplus, first one since 2015 of $28 billion. That's just real money. We have manufacturing jobs coming back. We have Donald Trump going to the Middle East and Japan and across the world, bringing in $5 trillion of new business. He used the tariffs to negotiate that. He's generated billions of dollars of new federal funds for the American people and our country without taxing the people. Every indicator's up. Jobs are up, stock market's up, crypto's up. The Dems are down, okay, but the American people are winning. That's what he promised. And I expect this guy that has the golden touch that most people cannot think this simple is going to change America for the best. If we get Jerome Powell out of the way, we will certainly go into the golden age.
Wow. Every indicator's looking good. Just got to get interest rates down. I still contest that the whole thing's rigged for failure, right? I mean, this is the whole thing of like, get out now. Like, it will come crashing. But the whole thing of the golden age is about assets. It's about having the things that make life great. We can change the financial system if we keep our heads about us. I really do believe that, right? Especially if enough people slowly migrate out of being bonded to it and stuck with it. This is where the good old advice, like pay off your personal mortgage, that will provide a lot of security for you. By the way, in the podcast with Tucker Carlson, Mr. Werner was talking about the Midwest and Kansas and the loans to farmers in the late 40s and early 50s and how it created, like, there was actual starvation in America, and it all had to do with these loans that had been issued out of no money, and the banks were consolidating all this inventory and property and tractors and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, we had talked about that with your family. He reiterated that. He was like, that was the first time that America saw what Andrew Jackson was trying to fight against happening, was the central banking and the creation of money without the asset. It makes perfect sense. You build a house, you're gonna value add to land. So let's go ahead and create the value of the house prior to the house existing. Does that make sense? So it's like loaning on the gold that you're going to get out of the mine, but then eventually you give them the gold, and now the debt and the credit match up, and now that new gold is in circulation. So it makes sense when you're making something new to be able to basically futuristically finance it as if it was already made. The problem is when I go to buy a used house, I'm not making a new ounce of gold or a new single family residence. So I, in theory, should be borrowing money that's already in the system that was put in when the asset was made
Instead
time.
Of creating new money.
Not 47 times. You see what I'm saying? Every time you go to buy a house, it's as if it's this new asset. Well, imagine if you're like, let's collect all the gold coins. And you're like, where's the trillions of gold coins that I financed that don't exist? That's basically every time you buy and sell a house, there's a new creation of money for that asset that is not new. That's the problem, right? So it's one thing to do it once, to speculate and like lend on speculation and create the money early. That conceptually you can kind of get there, but to do it over and over and over again, it's like taking a 35 ounces of gold, or $35, which used to be an ounce of gold, of being like, well, I'm going to create $35 and I mined this ounce. And you're like, okay, great. And then when I go sell the ounce to you, it's like, well, let's create $35 more. Well, now there's $70 in circulation, but only 1 ounce of gold. Well, let's create $35 more. Well, now there's 105 ounces in circulation, but there's still only 1 ounce of gold. Do you see how we go from $35 an ounce of gold to $3,000 for an ounce of gold? And there's still only one gold coin. Do you see how that is? Like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You're not creating a new piece of value that's represented by that dollar. Hence the fact that money's not redeemable anymore, because it's just made up. Okay.
Just inflating the value of the coin you have.
You're inflating the value of the coin you have by financing it over and over and over and
That's
over.
That's what inflation is.
Yeah. Which, if you go to the gold standard, you can't do that, because you got to create a new asset to have the money, and it's only in there once. Then that money just circulates. It is interesting. And the big thing he said was economists actually do not consider banks. They just consider them intermediaries. He's like, a bank is like a gold mine. It creates the money. He's like, that's the problem, is everybody who's should be analyzing this stuff, they've kept secret this new money thing, which I talk about it flippantly, like it's like a known fact. It's not a known fact out there. If you go talk to a banker, they have no idea. Oh, it's new money. It's like, yeah, that's why they tell you when you sign the promissory note, they'll go, okay, you'll find these funds in your account. They don't say we've loaned you this or anything. It's no, you'll find these funds as in poof. Like they have a script. He says that they tell trust title companies and bankers to use when they originate loans, and nobody thinks about why it's that specific. He says they might slip in, we loaned you money, but they're wrong. He says the script they have to say says these funds will now be found in your account. Like, as in, okay, where'd they come from? Oh no, they didn't transfer from anywhere. They're originated in your account. Clickety clack, click clack clack, enter. That's exactly how they're doing it. And he says, this is like the secret. This is the thing that if everybody understood this, we'd all be like, well, I just want to go down to the bank and create some money. That's basically what it would turn into, which is basically what your big dogs, I think a lot of them are doing. This is why Robert Kiyosaki says debtors win, savers lose. You can't save money. You can only in debt. You can only get more debt. That's it. Okay. So moving on here. RFK, let's move on to a little bit of a health topic. I feel like I kind of.
I feel like I'm kind of it's hard for me to participate when I'm remote. I really don't like being remote.
Well, I love having you here. It gives me at least somebody to talk to, other than Ann One, who says good morning in the Rumble chat. Are you back tomorrow or the next day?
I'll be back Wednesday night, so I won't really be back till Thursday morning.
Okay.
And I might have some spotty internet like I do here, so I don't know if it's working good or not.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
So this is Robert Kennedy Jr. talking on the Charlie Kirk show, and he's talking about a series of things, but he's mainly talking about the vaccines and kind of the insanity of that. I'm telling you, man, everybody feels it. If you're not caught up into Trump derangement syndrome and you're looking at the Trump presidency and the cabinet, it is the most transparent ever. And they are saying the things, they don't care what the past administrations did. They don't even care what their own administration did, like Trump's own administration did 4 years ago. In certain regards, it's absolutely scorched earth. What I love about this is there's been this entire ecosystem of truthers of all stripes, from labeled conspiracy theorists looking into extraterrestrial life, which, by the way, now we're to the point where it's like we have a foreign craft that's supposed to show up here in like November. Have you heard this story yet? I haven't really covered it much.
No, but I will say you just pointed on something that I wanted to maybe highlight, is that you can tell that there's a difference between this administration and past administrations, because past administrations will dwell on the past, and this administration is focused on the future.
They're focused on the future and correcting the mistakes. Like,
yes,
they're not okay.
They're not spending all of their time blaming others that were doing things in the past. They're just forget all that, move forward.
Well, and but at the same time, they're pointing it out. Like, they're like,
yes,
the mainstream is wrong. What the government has told you is a lie. Now we're correcting that lie. And us conspiracy theorists that have been labeled are like, whoa, or people in the independent media circles are like, whoa, some people have unplugged from mainstream media so much they don't even understand how revolutionary this is. If you're a daily news watcher boomer and all of a sudden RFK gets on and goes, yeah, it turns out everything we've ever known about vaccines is totally fraudulent, and turns out like all the way going back to the 1800s, they were manipulating those results in order to sell stuff. And it's like, so the whole thing's built on a fraud. So we're just kind of like deconstructing it piece by piece. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, no, it's literally like fraudulent premise after fraudulent premise after fraudulent premise, to where you don't even question the axioms that you're told, which are totally up for debate. So let's just listen to RFK here.
Companies, we have a free market system in this country, and part of that is that there's consequences if you make a bad product. And, vaccines are particularly exempt from that because there's no free market economy. Normally, if you get poisoned by Coca-Cola, you can stop drinking Coca-Cola. But if you get poisoned by a vaccine, your kids still have to take that vaccine to get into the school. If your doctor tells you your child will die because, he can look and see what happened to elder siblings, there's some kind of genetic vulnerability that's affected the older siblings, and the doctor wants to tell you your third child should not take this vaccine, he's going to be punished for that. And also the schools won't let you go to school no matter what. So in New York and California, there's not only no religious exemptions, there's no philosophical exemptions, but there also effectively is no medical exemption.
we're running into this now because here in Washington, we homeschool, but part of the requirements to homeschool is you still have to keep up with the vaccine schedule. Well, we've always used the exemptions. Literally, we've been doing this long before it was cool for anybody to do. And slowly but surely, Washington has eroded no religious exemption, no philosophical exemption. Or excuse me, we can get a religious exemption, not a philosophical one for students. For employees, you can't get a religious one. You have to use a philosophical one. So I have a friend who used a philosophical exemption to not get the vaccine for the ferry system, but all of his friends that tried to do religious exemptions got fired. But then in the public school system, there can be no philosophical exemption. There can only be religious exemptions, but they have to be signed off for a doctor. So now do you have to go to a doctor to explain your religious beliefs, who, by the way, as a matter of educational dogma, are atheist, right? They're agnostic on the topic of religion. So now your religious belief in their medical practice is akin to cookery, right? I mean, it's like, how many crystals would you like to heal your cancer? Is their mindset here? Oh, so your religious belief says that you're not going to get polio, so don't take the vaccine. You're crazy. Like, so in Washington, the insurance carriers tell the doctors that they are not allowed to sign off on a religious exemption at a bare minimum because they shouldn't be interpreting religion. Okay, that's being benevolent to the reason the insurance companies say no to doctors signing off on the religious exemption.
And
so
the people that there was a, I can't remember what the stat was, but there were a lot of people that signed up for religious exemptions. They were all denied. All of them. Washington denied every single one.
Yep. But you could sneak in on this philosophical one. They hadn't quite figured out how to beat people who actually read research papers. You know what I mean? But if you just believe in Sky Daddy, oh no, that's crazy. So anyways, we had to hunt down a doctor that doesn't take insurance, that has an active medical license, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, I'd be happy to do it. It's basically all I do nowadays. It's like, oh my gosh. So let's continue on here with Robert Kennedy.
So these kids, it's mandated, and because it's mandated, there's no market forces that tell you, that allow you, if you don't like the product, if you have reservations about it, you can't stop using it. You got to take it anyway. So the things that, and then, you have, of course, the mainstream media is bought and brain dead when it comes to these issues. They will not criticize, they will not report vaccine injury.
He just called the media bought and brain dead on these issues.
The Congress is very with the so you have none of the market forces that apply that make other products safe. There is zero incentive for these companies to make them safe. And they don't get punished for it in the market. They don't get punished for it in the court. And so, what we're going to try to do is to make sure that the parents who do get injured get compensation, that they get it very quickly, and they get it without the kind of adversarial impediments that have now been erected over the past 40 years. I mean,
if they can make the vaccine companies accountable to courts and individual lawsuits that can build upon each other, because one of the downsides of the vaccine injury court now is, say I come in with a kid that's vaccine injured, and they took the X shot, and the X shot causes Y disease. I mean, it is cut and dry. I go in, I prove my case, everything's there, the science, the doctors, the experts, boom, I win a settlement. Because you could sue them. Well, then you come in and you're like, hey, my kid took the X shot, my kid took Y disease, everything's the same. So you come in and you go, hey, referencing that case, here's another case that's identical. Give me a summary judgment, or let's just, let's get to trial. I've already got it. They go, what are you talking about? You have to start over from the beginning. You can't use anything in precedent. You can't use anything from prior cases. So even if they come in and definitively prove, which they have, by the way, continuously, every new case is like it's the first time, it's completely a novel injury. You have disease Y? Oh my goodness, that's interesting. You just settled with 19 people in a row. Yeah, well, we put the burden on them to prove it from start to finish too. So just removing that alone, once one person proves vaccine injury, everybody else can come in and get on board. They can't do that. So they know if we damage 1 out of 100,000 people, we give the vaccine to 1 billion people, you're going to have 1 million lawsuits, but each one of them is going to be litigated separately. And how many of those 1 million people actually have the resources to litigate? Very few. Usually it's one big litigant, and then everybody jumps in on some class action after the fact. You can't do that with vaccines. It's one at a time. It's a huge limitation on them. So really, really glad that, again, Bobby Kennedy, very impressive. Lee Zeldin, very impressive. Tulsi Gabbard becoming more and more impressive. It's all really, really good. There's a couple stories that I really didn't want to play. I'm going to mention them just for the sake of mentioning them because I brought them up for a reason. But again, going along with the theme, the government seems to always be corrupt. This right here is Lake City, Columbia County, and this is in I think this is Jacksonville, right? Florida, excuse me, Columbia County, Florida. And this was a family that was taking in foster kids for CPS. Man, I don't even really want to share it. It just is dark, but let's just say they were keeping the foster kids in cages and they were abusing them, sexual, physical, everything. And they had quite a few kids, 9 children they were foster caring for in this little double wide. How does the system allow that? Simultaneously this week, there was another child that was in foster care that had been taken from his father, right? Removed from his father during divorce proceedings. So it's another one of those nasty he said, she said situations where, custody is removed and they've got to figure it out. So he's in Child Protective Services. So during the day, this kid goes to a daycare of sorts, like a daycare thing for other foster kids before they get farmed out at night to wherever they're going. He had a doctor's appointment, he had a scheduled visitation, supervised visitation with the father. So the CPS worker picks the child up from the care facility, goes and does the 1-hour visit with the father, and then rather than return to the care facility and return the child, decided to go run errands. Go to the store, buy food for their own kid, left the kid in the car, kid died in the car, hot car. CPS worker. This was in People magazine, ran an article on it. Gateway Pundit had a piece on it. What do you do? What do you do? Oh, I just thought I'd go grab groceries and leave the kid in the car. You're supposed to protect kids. This is like, leave your kid in the car at Walmart and see how that goes. You'll come out to a broken window. Enough Karens are going to, you can't even leave a freaking dog in the car nowadays. That's why everybody lets you take dogs in the buildings, because they got tired of dogs dying in the parking lot.
No, you leave a kid in the car, you're getting CPS called on you. What the hell?
And so what happens when CPS is doing it? I contend that every harm that we inflict upon each other, that the government comes to punish you for, they inflict those harms in spade. Oh, you did damage to the U.S. Capitol. How many front doors did you break in and coming after us? You did more than $2 million in front door damage on various residences around the country. You know what I mean? How much trauma did you inflict on 1,600 people and their families and their neighbors? And, most of those congressmen, trust me, they weren't traumatized. They were probably read in on the project. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's talking, like, you want to talk about interfering with commerce? I was convicted of civil disturbance for furtherance of interference of commerce because Safeway had less gas receipts on January 7th than January 6th. Oh, could it be the blockades that you set up around the town and the military occupation you installed? It had to do with the 2-hour event the day before. No, you had a surge of business and everybody was getting out of town on January 7th, right? Oh, but you interfered with commerce. You shut my business down. You closed my bank account. You know how many J6ers lost their businesses totaling way more revenue than Safeway lost in gas sales on January 7th in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, exactly. You leave a kid in a hot car, who are you going to call? CPS. Why? So they can leave your kid in a hot car. Unbelievable. So, dour subject. Didn't really want to touch on it. But that's what, we need law enforcement. We need these systems, but they also have to be like of the highest ethical standard. I mean, I don't know the solution. For me, I am the solution. I don't want to put myself in a position where my kids end up with CPS. I don't want to put myself in a position where I've in hawk to banks. I don't want to put myself in a position where, I'm subject to all this lunacy that we can see on its surface. I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm putting a vaccine in my kid every time a new drug company comes up with a new profit incentive with no accountability or liability. I don't want to be like, trust the science, just to find out the science is not to be trusted. You know what I mean? Like, be the solution. This is Megyn Kelly.
The science is being weaponized against us.
It's being weaponized, as well as information. So this is Megyn Kelly going all the way back to the WikiLeaks info when they leaked the John Podesta email and the DNC stuff. WikiLeaks exposed innocent people's info. So of all the things that could possibly happen and all the things that could be exposed are like, there's private people's info. Who are these private people? Who are these private people, mind you? These are public people interacting with public figures on private servers that aren't supposed to have private servers. Like, if you're in government, you're not supposed to be using a Gmail account. And if you are, you're supposed to turn it over to the records and archives so that I can go read it. That's the whole point of this. So when WikiLeaks dumps something and the government's offended because people got to see what they're doing, it's like, you should have released this in the first place. That's my opinion. If WikiLeaks can get a hold of your data, it ain't top secret or classified. I don't care if they hack servers. It's your duty not to put it on a server if it has to be that secret. That's honestly my opinion about it. Okay. So WikiLeaks got a bunch of information on Clintons, the DNC, and listen how Megyn Kelly, how she has changed her tune over the years. Listen to how she addresses this.
Ask you about the U.S. election. As you point out, you're not an American citizen. You're an Australian. You're clearly not rooting for Hillary. But are you rooting for Trump?
No. I mean, if we have good information on Trump, we publish that. If we have good information on Hillary, the Democrats, we publish that. It is a bit concerning, the allegations that by the Clinton campaign that everyone is a Russian agent are really disturbing. Why is that? Well, because bizarrely, Hillary Clinton, the Democrat, has positioned herself now to be the security candidate. She's powered up with the neocons responsible for the Iraq War, and she's grabbed on to this kind of neo-McCarthyist hysteria about Russia and is using that to demonize the Trump campaign. The Trump campaign has all sorts of things wrong with it, but as far as we can see, being Russian agents is not one of them. Some people have asked us, when will you release information on Donald Trump? And of course, we are very interested in all countries to reveal the truth about different candidates, you can understand. But it's really hard for us to release anything worse than what comes out of Donald Trump's mouth every second day. I mean, it's part of his charismatic appeal that he speaks off the cuff.
Basically, they're like, look, just listen to the guy. Like his private communications aren't any different. He says everything out loud. Unlike Hillary Clinton, who goes to a Wall Street meeting and is like, you have one thing for the public and one thing for the private. I'm working for you bankers, but I'll tell the American people whatever it takes to get a vote. She's saying this. It's in her speech transcript, in her emails. So he's like, you release that. That's pretty damning. Trump ends up referencing that in his big, the world's being run by cabal speech, references that specific email where she's like, hey, I have a public policy and a private policy. I have the public policy for votes and the private policy for bribes. You know what I mean? It's like, he's like, I don't do that. So when Julian Assange says that, it's like super obvious. But think about Julian Assange going back, well, the accusations that Trump's with Russia is horrible, but we find no evidence of that. We don't see anything of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, hello, for those of us that have been on the outside looking in, we've been seeing this since the beginning. It's incredulous to believe that Donald Trump is a Russian asset or an agent. There's just no connecting sinew to that stuff. Even Paul Manafort, who ended up going to prison, what did he go to prison for? Oh, he showed some Ukrainian, not Russian, some Ukrainian that may or may not have Russian ties, some internal polling from the Trump campaign after it was old enough to have been replaced by new polling. Okay, so you showed them polling. Yeah. And what did it show? Oh, Trump had a shot of winning. Okay. And was it like up to date and current? Have any top secret information? No. Did it have personal identifying information of the people that were polled? No. So it just was like an opinion poll. Yeah. But he showed it to a Ukrainian who may have had Russian ties. Oh, you got to send him to prison. Oh, he's got to go. Cannot let that guy out. I mean, heaven forbid someone forward you a Rasmussen poll. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? These things get leaked all the time. I mean, how many times do you see headlines? Internal polling shows. Did you just leak? There's no burden of classification on that. You know what I mean? Like,
professional leakers.
Yeah, it's wild. So, and I like this going back to Anderson Cooper. You have to remember the media right now, pay attention, everybody. The media is trying to run away from what they did. Let's go back and listen to how they premised this entire Russia collusion narrative.
Begin tonight with the president saying today that the Russia investigations are a form of mania cooked up by President Trump's opponents in an effort to undermine him. But it wasn't.
By the way, those exact words are being used on the Epstein hoax. Identical. And Trump's like, and it's the same dang people. In 10 years, we're going to be like, yeah, it turns out Trump had nothing to do with Epstein. It was all Bill Clinton. And why did they bring that out? Well, they'd pretty much run the Hillary Clinton thing to ground, and she was about to go to jail for treason. And so we decided, we don't want to break the seal in the Clinton family. Let's run this one out.
President Trump who said that. It was Russian President Vladimir Putin in his annual end-of-the-year press conference in Moscow. Putin praised President Trump, saying he has made a number of fairly serious achievements, and Putin called the Russia investigations delirium and madness.
This is all dreamed up by people who are in opposition to Trump, so as to make sure that everybody thinks that what he's doing, what he's working at, is illegitimate.
As you know, United States intelligence agencies are unanimous in this conclusion that Russia launched an unprecedented attack on the American electoral process during the 2016 presidential campaign and are almost certainly going to try to do it again.
Okay. Unanimous, certain, Russian launched an attack on the United States. Okay. And Putin's like, this is drummed up by his political enemies. So who's vindicated? Who's vindicated? Putin. Oh, Putin. Oh, he's a good guy now. He tells the truth. No, I'm just saying he's like, that's stupid. And honestly, saying the truth sowed more discord because Anderson Cooper's like, even Putin doesn't believe the lie. Can you believe this? Putin's not listening to CNN. Like, it's just nonsense.
A clear threat to national security and American democracy, something the leader of a country under attack surely would want to address. But tonight there's new reporting from the Washington.
So they're already pushing for Trump to address and counterattack Russia. Okay.
Post that says not only does President Trump continue to reject evidence of Russia meddling to support him, he doesn't even want to hear about it.
Epstein? Are you asking about Epstein again? Good gravy. You're wasting my time. Russia? Russia? We just cut a tax. We just dropped taxes for Americans. Why are we talking about Russia? Imagine the insanity that Donald Trump had to live through, where every other question coming from mainstream credible journalists is about nonsense. Nonsense. You know, I mean,
how do we address this latest gaslighting? I don't know.
Donald Trump, how many virgins do we need to throw into the volcano to prevent World War III? What are we talking about throwing virgins in the volcano for? We're not doing that. Well, if you don't do that, there's going to be World War III. You've got to go attack the Russians. You know, it's like, no, we don't have to do any of that. We need to raise tariffs. It's reestablish the American economy. But the Russians, you know, it's like, where are these people coming from? They're nuts. But the gaslight, I mean, you could play clip after clip. They did this for a decade. Night after night, lie after lie, they did this for a decade. And now we're just like, oh yeah, I mean, incontrovertible evidence that that Trump's got this problem. Here, I'm going to play this from Trump first.
And the media is all aligned.
Yep. So this is Trump. Now, remember, the Russiagate, Trump doesn't even want to hear it. Why are we talking about it? So here you've got Trump again being asked about Epstein. So he's just doing the same thing. He's throwing it back, just like he used to. You don't need to be talking about me and Russia. You should be talking about Hillary. They spied on my campaign. It's fake. He's been saying it since the beginning. So here he is taking a question on Epstein.
Explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that work for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth. And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island. Yeah, explain, but I don't want to waste.
So he's getting asked about it, right? Another one of these gotcha questions. Aren't you going to do? Nah, Epstein, I knew him, threw him out of my place. He did something. Haven't talked to him in years. Didn't go down to the island. Larry Summers, Bill Clinton. He's again, guess what's going to happen? Trump's always right. I can't think of one time where Trump hasn't blurted out, even if it's in an inarticulate way. The name Larry Summers, president of Harvard, are going to be the resolution to the story. They're the big players that have been blackmailed, used, leveraged in some way. Trump wouldn't mention it otherwise. A lot of people are associated with Jeffrey Epstein. He just name dropped two people. So somehow that storyline itself. Just like Trump is the one who told us that the entire dossier can't be. He's the one who first told us that. And then everyone else kind of got in line with it as they started to see the evidence. But he knew right away. He knew that James Comey was giving him a shakedown. And I know that came from opposition research. He put the dots together instantly, but he had to wait a decade for the rest of the world to catch up. So this Epstein thing, it's not over. I really wanted to close the chapter on it a while ago, but at least all the storylines are coming together, right? You're starting to see the government corruption, the legal case, and this Epstein thing, along with the Russiagate, Traingate, and on and on. They're emerging. The actors, Hillary Clinton, case with Dawson, the Clinton family, the Clinton Foundation, of which Jeffrey Epstein is a co-founder. Do you see? So the Clinton dossier to keep Trump out of power. What are you covering up? Covering up everything from paper play to potential scandal. What will you do to prevent accountability on that front? Because of course there's a trail of bodies all around you that have been involved. What would you do? How far would you go to make sure that you don't get do you think you might go so far as to a siege of the government and install the incoming administration? You might go so far as to set up dirty tricks to impeachment scenarios? Do you think you go so far as to imprison innocent Americans in order in furtherance of a narrative that's not true? To say someone else overthrew an election? Go so far as to maybe involved with a bioweapon and a vaccine mandate, which causes a lot of distraction and potential death, right? How far the crimes, plural, of the century? Each one of them in and of themselves could bring down the Ming Dynasty, right? And you've got all of these scandals tied up with essentially what I see as one Clinton cabal. It's Clintonese. Whatever Obama plays in there, it has to do with covering up for Clinton or something else. Like, it all stems from this very, very family that anybody into 3 seconds, their corruption goes back to the very beginning in Arkansas. Bill Clinton was at minimum complicit with drug running into Arkansas through Mena, Arkansas, cartels from South America under the direction of the CIA, which George H.W. Bush was involved with. And that relationship, that little cabal of criminals, and I know that for a fact because I was in prison with a guy named Rex who did cocaine with Bill Clinton's brother in his house and got cocaine triggered by the state police who were acting under the direction of this guy ended up serving a prison. Right? I know that for a fact from him. Again, no reason to disbelieve him. You knew intricate names. You knew details that I didn't know. And since I got back, I looked up. Sure enough, he was right. That happened on that time that he was saying. He was there. Okay? Their corruption goes back far. It was no big deal for Hillary to say, I got one opinion for public and one opinion for private. You're a politician, that's it. That's it. These guys are so entrenched and so deep, right? The whole thing. So when Trump name drops, that's the version of this is one story. This is one cabal that's covering up their activities. The elite pedophile ring may or may not be true. It doesn't matter. It's a distraction from all the other stuff too. They're all distracted. In a vacuum, each little thing looks like a manageable crisis. It looks like a manageable thing. Maybe each little, we can explain it. It's false. Okay, explain away the other 47 people that all died mysteriously with gunshots in the back of the head called suicide. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyways, it's all one thing. Here is, I actually don't know who this guy is. Jason was on Newsmax, and he just lays out exactly what we've seen with these disclosures that have come out vis-a-vis Tulsi Gabbard.
I hate to say this, but President Barack Obama, there is now incontrovertible evidence that he was the spearhead of a seditious conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people and overthrow the United States government back in 2016. We must, absolutely must, hold every one of these criminals accountable for the crimes that they committed. They are the most heinous crimes committed in American history. James Comey, John Brennan, Clapper, Rice, Biden was in the meeting in July 28th in the Oval Office. They briefed Barack Obama on Hillary Clinton's plan to, quote, tie Trump to Russia collusion lies. It consumed our national discourse for 5 years. It undermined a sitting duly elected president. It sabotaged administration. It framed a three-star general. It destroyed and ripped this country apart. We had a constitutional crisis, the likes of which I don't think any American can fully comprehend. It is atrocious, and every single one of them must be held accountable.
Yeah, and of course,
there's been a debate on the Peasants Pod living room as to, how far should Trump go in his retribution. And I just he needs to hold the people who did the bad things accountable. It's that simple. There is no mercy here until justice has been administered. Their bye-bye. Yeah. Don't forget who told you to walk to the Capitol building, then sucked you into got OT prison. Well, I made all those choices myself. I don't blame Trump for any of that at all. Play the two-party like a fiddle. Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's the Hegelian dialectic. We talk about it all the time. So the accountability for these people, there has to be. I understand, well, you don't want to get in the habit of prosecuting presidents. You did it. This isn't the first thing. We don't want to disrupt. No, you have to. This isn't the first time. If you don't punch the schoolyard bully in the nose hard and quick, he's going to keep picking and picking and picking. If all you do is go, you're not going to do it again, are you? Yeah, I won't do it again. And then the next day, guess what the bully's going to do? Do it again. You've got to finish it, right? I don't know if Barack Obama goes down. I don't know who. I have low expectations. I've said it many, many times. But there has to be legitimate accountability. Keep in mind, I got a 7-year, 3-month prison sentence for what amounted to 12 seconds of pushing at a gate. 7 years, 3 months. George Santos got a 7-year, 3 months prison sentence for what accounted for $50,000 in credit card irregularities that could have been construed as fraud. Okay. Pretty significant. Now, this has nothing to do with the Epstein scandal directly that we know of yet, but this is Rick Grinnell talking about the Kennedy Center, America's theater, and he's on the board of it, and so is Pam Bondi, and they found something really interesting. And again, this just comes down to it's all around you. These people have to be held accountable.
Our great new CFO went through the 24 and 25 budgets of the Kennedy Center and found $26 million in phantom revenue, fake revenue. It's criminal. We're going to refer this to the U.S. Attorney's Office here. We're lucky enough to have the Attorney General on the board of the Kennedy Center who heard all the details today. She heard the details. And this is unacceptable in America to have a fake revenue of $26 million fraud on previous donors. It's
fraud. It's pedantic. It's pedantic for these people. It's so common and so prevalent that even the Kennedy Center in one fiscal year could launder in $26 million. What's not corrupt? What's not got problems? I'm the first to be like, look, I don't know the solutions here. I don't know how to fix every little thing. I don't know. Do you get rid of the Kennedy Center? Do you arrest the former CFO? I mean, what was the money for? Questions. But clearly, if the Kennedy Center is laundering $26 million, what is the Smithsonian doing? It was closed for 2 years, right? It still got $100 billion out of the CARES Act. $100 billion. I may be wrong. It was $100 billion. Either way, ridiculous. They were closed. On and on we go, right? Oh, it's all usual, right? Here's another one. Again, patently obvious criminal activity. This is Maricopa County, right? Right there. Opens the drawer, breaks the seal, felony. Doesn't matter what she did. Oh, opened another drawer, broke the seal, felony. They're just committing felonies right now. They're just totally compromising your elections. Whatever those machines do, you can't certify them. They're uncertified. You broke the seal over and over and over again, right? Oh, took out the reprogramming the memory card. Oh, drops him off on his desk where now he takes them. Oh, look, he's plugging the memory cards from the voting things into his computer. Oh, look, broke another seal. Look, the seal, took it off, just removed it. Oh, but he's putting the sticker back on. Don't worry, folks. Don't worry. Carrie Lake did not have the election stolen from her. Like, this was inconsequential. Oh, broke another seal, felony. Do you think this woman right here with the hair bun knows she's making like major felonies and like a 10-year prison sentence just for breaking the seal? Oh, broke the seal. This is the most sacred thing in our democracy. No big deal. You're not even watching this. Here you go. Break the seal. Okay. Woman's breaking the seal. Okay. I'm sorry that I went through this all without you guys seeing. So she's breaking the seal. It's a felony right there. Felony. Okay. She's taking out the memory card. Now watch what she does. She walks over here and she puts the memory cards down on his desk. And then he reaches up and takes the memory cards. So he's going to grab them in a second here. Oh, now he's breaking the seal. She's breaking the seal. Excuse me. Okay. So she's breaking the seal. You see that? And she's putting it back on. She's trying to put it back on there. Okay. Another seal broken. Another seal broken. Oh, now they're gathered around the computer. He's doing something. Supposedly he plugged the memory cards in. Maybe she plugged them in. I don't know. Oh, there you go. Okay. Fraud. Every single one of these people. Okay. So what do we do? It's in our face. And it's been this way the whole time, by the way. Whole time. Been this way the whole time. So what are you going to do? Oh, we can't punish these people. That wouldn't be fair. It's like your sacred franchise of voting right there. Can't certify those machines. There's no way you can count on that election in any way. Why? How do you know it affected it? How do you know it didn't? How do you know it didn't? Why do we make a rule that says you have to have those machines certified, sealed, et cetera, et cetera? Why are you supposed to hold the code in escrow and they don't? So nobody can examine the code. You can't tell me that they didn't commit fraud. All the evidence points to the fact that they did. Only your belief that they didn't is what is supporting that. It's the faulty premise, right? And it's the same thing. How do you know the Kennedy Center isn't laundering money for El Chapo? You can't prove that he did, and they got $26 million in Ghost Phantom. How do you know that that's not laundered in from foreign dignitaries to pay off other groups and other, it just goes on and on and on. Can't prove otherwise. Here's an interesting tidbit, just so you guys understand how deep things can potentially go. In August 2008, shortly after Epstein began serving an 18-month jail term in Florida, the Zorro Trust claimed a winning Powerball ticket. Now, in 1776 Live, we talk a lot about trusts and the power of trusts. This is just an example of how powerful trusts are on obscuring true ownership. The Zorro Trust claimed a winning Powerball ticket purchased at a convenience store in Atlas, Oklahoma for $85 million jackpot, receiving approximately $29.3 million after taxes, a lump sum. So this is right after Jeffrey Epstein started his 18-month jail term. Epstein had a financial entity named Zorro Trust, which he used for donations to politicians in New Mexico, where he owned a property called Zorro Ranch. The timing of the win, one day after Epstein's incarceration, began on July 1st, 2008, and a reported, quote, computer glitch that delayed the televised lottery draw fueled suspicions of fraud or money laundering. How much you want to bet that was a payoff for Epstein to stay quiet in that last prosecution? Crazy. It's in your face. It's clearly in your face. I didn't know that lottery tickets could be bought by trusts. They can't. They just are named the beneficiary of the trust of the lottery ticket. But the point is there you go. Another example. For those of you that are 1776 Live aficionados, that's the power of a trust. Okay. That's the power of a trust. For those of you that are upset that there's no transparency, well, that's the power of a trust. Okay. President Trump delivers on his campaign promise. So this is someone that I've mentioned before. This is Matthew Lohmeyer, who I know through private affiliation and circles. He and I have spoken, I think, once, maybe twice. But either way, I consider him a kindred spirit and a friend.
My name is Matt Lohmeyer. I was an Air Force F-15 pilot, and I was a commander in your newly created U.S. Space Force. I am also the first veteran of the Space Force because under the Biden-Harris regime, I was fired from my command and lost my pension for criticizing DEI trainings that were rampant in the military. Those trainings are still dividing our troops, and thank you for saying you would fire those few woke generals who are a big problem.
They're gone.
I'm going to suggest that it might, in fact, require ongoing oversight and a persistent, consistent, watchful eye within the Pentagon to ensure this monster never returns to the Defense Department. Will you consider establishing a special task force, office, or position to ensure that these monsters never return to the Defense Department?
You know what I'll do? And I'm pretty good at this stuff. Sometimes you get it wrong. I'm going to put you on that task force. I think it's good. Not going to do better than him. I'll put you on. We're not going to get better than him. You're right about it. You're right. 100%. Thank you.
Couldn't happen to a better guy. He went up to ask that question, and Trump decided to put him in his administration. And yesterday, or actually it was 2 days ago, he was confirmed. So here you've got President Trump delivers on his promise to his campaign promise. Matthew Lohmeyer is our new Undersecretary of the Air Force. He's now the boss of the people who fired him. I love it so much. Anyways, very, very cool. I'm very excited for him. He's going to go in and root out Marxism and DEI. He wrote, in fact, before I act like I'm, where is it? Give me a moment. Oh, where is it? Give me just a second. I've got his book. Oh, here it is, right here. This is his book, Matthew Lohmeyer. See? Told you. Irresistible Revolution by Matthew Lohmeyer. That is who just became the Undersecretary of the Air Force. Marxism's goal of conquest and unmaking the American military. The person who wrote this book is now the Undersecretary of the Air Force. Okay. He goes, pundits often seem perplexed by current policy decisions being made on our country, but our apparent missteps are part of a long-standing plan, patently and methodically pursued by those intent on the overthrow of the U.S. government and its replacement with a communist dictatorship. Ultimately, many of those now furthering that agenda do so unwittingly. After becoming aware of the Marxist conquest of American society, you will never look at things again in the same way. Mainstream media, social media, the public education system, including the university as well as federal agencies, have all become vessels of various schools of thought that are rooted in Marxist ideology, an ideology bent on the destruction of America's history, of Western tradition, specifically Judeo-Christian values, and of patriotism and conservatism. The problem has become systemic, a tragedy considering that the defeat of Marxist communist ideology was the very cause which our nation spent great treasures of blood and iron during the 20th century. We're in, baby. We're in. We made it in to go fight the revolution, to go fight the communists. Matthew Lohmeyer is in. The guy who wrote this book is now part of the administration. This was the reason they fired him. And now he's back, right? There's an element of all of this. I'm 42, right? I got gray hair now. I have been the crazy guy at Thanksgiving for 20 something years. I have been the one who's like, the system's messed up. It's not right. It shouldn't be this way. And it doesn't matter if it's left or right. I'm always criticizing the system because the system is not meant to support liberty, freedom, or any of the ideals that I thought we were supposed to have as Americans. He agreed with me. And he's a guy who went flying F-15s, right? He was a lieutenant commander in the Space Force. High ranking. They were trying to overthrow the government and install a communist dictatorship. Just like they said, we won't even fire a bullet. We'll just take over. The long march through the institutions. The vindication for guys like me who've quite literally I ended up going out and doing septic. I got accepted to law school, didn't want to sell my soul, right? I got a degree in political science, didn't want to continue down the political path. I didn't want to sell my soul, right? I got involved. I was a mortgage broker, didn't want to sell my soul. I was a real estate agent. It's not bad. Still, didn't want to sell my soul. You know, I could go on and on. I ended up working with my hands. And finally, I'm back here just like, listen, I can only run so far. I can only run away from this so far. You guys keep chasing me because of the communist dictatorship. So anyways, Matthew Lohmeyer has been put in. I'll always try to, the one level connections that I've developed into the administration and people that are part of this fight back is significant. We are part of a movement. I could call up Matthew, maybe not now because he's busy in the administration, but I could have called up Matthew Lohmeyer and had a conversation with him, right? his friends, his close friends are my close friends. Like, that's how I'm certain, you know what I mean? Like, I know who he is because I know the people he associates with on the daily and their normal stuff. You know, those are people that I go and hang out with and stuff all the time. I understand there's other people too that are in that ones. I don't disclose every single person because I like to keep them, you know, private in case there's any blowback either way. But the point is you are a part of something, right? By amplifying my voice, you're amplifying your voice. My voice gets heard by people like Matthew Lohmeyer and his friends, who then go and connect into this bigger zeitgeist. The revolution will be podcasted. It's the only way we talk. It's by doing this. It's by coming out and sharing this show, joining up with programs like 1776live.us that offer real solutions for you personally, so you're not subject to the whims of democracy, as we call it, or even worse, the heavy hand of a communist dictatorship that he saw firsthand being implemented by our military itself. So all of it, just be a part of it. There was one thing, I've got to find it. I wanted to show this. This is the Amish. Okay. I mentioned yesterday to our Australian listener that that America is built a little bit different. And one of the reasons we're built different is we have this Amish population that has to be considered at all times, right? They are uncontracted, free birthright citizens without any obligation for building permits, taxes, any of that kind of stuff. So this right here is a picture, okay, of Amish men in 1955 reporting to jail for refusing to send their children to public school. Heroes. They refused the benefit and then they got thrown in jail. I don't know how long they were in jail. It's irrelevant. But now, guess what? You can homeschool your kids. Why? Because they stood together, did not bend, did not break, were willing to be put into prison, probably at the point of a gun. They're pacifists, but they went when they had to because they were unwilling to put their children in school. It's people who stand up against the tyranny that make it easier for future people to continue to stand. We have that strength in numbers. We just have to get on the same page. It's so nice to have people in the administration that are talking our language, the RFKs, the Lee Zeldins, the Tulsi Gabbards that are looking at the smoke monster, the government, with a critical eye, and they're not afraid to say it has made mistakes. Some of them heinous. But we, the people, always have been and always will be the solution. It's the Matthew Lohmeyers of the world. It's the RFKs. It's the Tulsi Gabbard. It's the Donald Trump, who a couple of those names sound elite, but they're not. Trust me, they're not. Because in America, we are actually all equal. The only thing that separates us is the 6 inches between your brain and what you choose to do with it. So I wanted to point that out, the Amish. This is one of the things. They stood up. They've preserved their rights. And they left the door open for us. Try to be Amish with a cell phone. Just go do it. Be Amish with a cell phone. Like, and with a driver's license. Just be Amish with a driver's license and a cell phone. It's okay, right? Operate out of trust. Do it different. You can do it. You can do it. Okay. Here is Obama's wingman, as he called himself. This is Eric Holder, first attorney general to ever be held in contempt that wasn't prosecuted. And, but of course, you know, that criminal referral still there. I think we're probably beyond the statute of limitations, but I'll be interested to see if Eric Holder gets wrapped up in this grand conspiracy case. But he is doing the whole, we cannot run a republic like this, talking about Dan Bongino's little tweet that he put out the other day.
No idea what Bongino was talking about, and I don't necessarily want to go into the workings of his mind. That's a place I simply don't want to be. But I think we should put a pin in that, and let's see. Okay, when we finally get to what they will call the resolution of this matter, has the matter been resolved in a way that's consistent with what he is saying, which sounds kind of like a neutral way in which they are looking at these matters. And we'll see if, in fact, they did that. We'll see what the results are. This notion in that statement that we're not politicizing things, it runs headlong into these bothersome things called the facts. Mm-hmm. This administration has used the Justice Department, has used the investigatory power of the Justice Department to...
Fast and Furious, IRS targeting of conservatives, How many other? I mean, come on, Eric Holder, really? You're weaponizing. The Republicans are weaponizing government.
Target political opponents of the president. I mean, you've seen Donald Trump talk about a whole range of things, most ridiculous, to talk about the possibility of indicting, prosecuting for treason Barack Obama. I mean, you know, these are dangerous kinds of things that this president is talking about. And I'm really concerned that this Justice Department, under Bondi, under Patel, will do things that are inconsistent with the traditions of the department and put at risk the lives and well-being of many people in this country who are, for whatever reason, politically opposed to or take political positions that are inconsistent with the desires of this president. I mean, I have no idea
Eric Holder, by not stopping the cabal when you were in charge, right? He's got art of projection. Oh, they'll go against the norms. Oh, like a properly predicated investigation. I mean, if you illegally spy on a campaign and you get fake FISA warrants, don't come complaining to me when you're being spied on with a FISA warrant. Don't argue with me if it was properly predicated or not. Or a secret court. I don't know. They just spy on everything. What do you want me to do about it? You had power. You didn't do anything about it. You used it. So you left the tool for your predecessor. Should have got rid of it. Sorry, lost your chance. I don't know what you want me to do here. You guys weaponize government, and then you're like, oh, they're weaponizing government. Wicked will slay the wicked. My job is to not get involved. Okay? That's my job, is to not get involved. I'm just going to, from the peanut gallery, we'll just give our support to Matthew Lohmeyer. If you're inspired to go and make a difference, clearly, you know, I'm part of the GOP locally, team captain or whatever they've made me. Yeah, I'm trying to get involved and do make a difference because I am the solution. But as far as stuff like that, it's like, FISA, that's your guys' deal. There's someone else doing that. Steve Bannon says this, and I think he's right. I think it's about time. We should probably see something. It'd be really nice to see some
politics of it all. Also, Eric's got a lot to say about the Tulsi Gabbard situation. We got to get on with it. Let's stick the landing. How about a couple of perp walks in the next couple of weeks? I think people feel a lot better if they saw somebody cuffed and you know, a grand jury indictment. Politics of it all. Also, Eric's got a lot to say about.
Oops. Yep. We'd like to see somebody cuffed, a grand jury indictment. It'd all be so nice. All right, guys, that is it for the show today. I am going to go onto private and continue chatting there. If anybody follows me into private, we can have a fun little discussion through the chat or whatever. Otherwise, I'm just going to set it onto private. As soon as I end the stream, I'm going to go take my little bathroom break, and then I'll be right back. If you stick around, we'll talk. Otherwise, I'm going to let it run on private until I run up the time that I have to do in the next 2 days, because I wasn't doing private at the beginning of the month. So, by the way, thank you. I got all the chatters in, even got an extra one. That was kind of fun. So next month we have to do it all again. In fact, if we could just knock it out of the gate the first week so I don't have to pimp for chats, that'd be really great. Okay. And you guys did great watching the number of hours they requested and all that kind of stuff. Like, we went above and beyond on some of that. I was really happy with the results. In fact, just, you know, so you guys know, it's not on the computer so I can show you, but we've had 26,546 downloads, which is super exciting, especially considering that's coming from 313 followers, which I'm assuming there's some people that aren't following that watch the show based on those numbers. We've got 227 hours streamed this much, hours watched this month. And we had our 21 out of 20 chatters, which, you know, the 20 chatters kind of blows my mind. I know there's more of 20 of you that listen every single day. So make sure at least one time you come into Rumble, do the live chat in the morning. I know it's a pain in the butt, but, you know, East Coast, it's 9:30. Figure out a minute to get on there into Rumble and do it. I know the YouTube listeners, which we had quite a few YouTube listeners today. In fact, more on YouTube than Rumble. I've heard it's a better stream. I have nothing to do about it. Rumble's in the program. It's, you know, to me, Rumble's kind of the free speech home for stuff like this. YouTube's just like, it's a non-starter as far as long-term. So anyways, and just got a couple more hours of private stream, or another hour and 20 minutes of private stream we're supposed to do. So I'm going to try to do some of that today. Appreciate you guys joining me as always. No outro. I'm just going to go straight to private. And those of you that are in Rumble Premium and can stick around for the private show, I'm happy to have you. We'll chat for a few minutes, but I'm going to take a quick break. But either way, we'll talk to you guys that are not joining us on the private side again tomorrow.